So let's talk Authortube NEWBIE Tag. So tonight I thought I'd start with the rite of passage. Now, I realize that there's a 2.0, but I kind of like the traditional one better. Really, these are just questions to help people get to know you, for you to tell folks kind of who you are and what you're about. By way of introduction, I suppose. I'm not used to talking to camera yet, so it's kind of awkward to me. You know about my lighting, obviously, glasses and shadows and all that. So, stuff that is part of being new. Quite frankly, I'm a pretty reserved person, I guess. If you knew me in real life, you would probably be surprised to hear me say that. I act goofy, I do weird things and sing songs and generally in a good mood, but I think I've gotten kind of private. Part of that's due to my job and I do in the real world. I'm not sharing all of my personal information with everybody here on purpose. In a way, I'm kind of like a little celebrity, and there's a lot of folks that I just prefer not to be a part of this journey. So you don't usually get that opportunity to be anonymous, especially in today's world. This is the closest I could get, is to create a YouTube channel that without my name, and basically hope that the people that follow the Authortube and the BookTube world are not people that I would run into in my daily life. But I mean, again, at some point, I guess it's okay. It's just, I want this to be for me more than anything else. The first question is, how did you find out about Authortube? Well, for me, it was COVID. The transition of needing to work from home meant a lot more time in the same space. This is basically the office I work from whenever I'm at home. Hence the reason that I'm recording this at nighttime and I write at night, because I typically am working during the day and don't have really the flexibility, the opportunity, except on the weekend. So YouTube kind of became an opportunity for me to learn and for me to, find entertainment, music, things like that. I mean, things that all of you have at some point in time done, hence going down the YouTube, rabbit hole. And I've been writing for quite some time, and I stumbled onto this really cool community of folks who are giving writing advice and book advice, doing book reviews. So the Authortube, BookTube, WriterTube, kind of all that genres all stuck together. If that's a word or a thing in YouTube, it's probably not, but whatever. I don't know the lingo yet. The folks who were, that I was watching, I was really enjoying. I mean, most of the ones probably that y'all recognize too. I'm not going to drop a bunch of names, but like the main ones are Abby Emmons and Ryderly. There's a couple of new ones, and then Katie Kavanaugh. I really enjoy her stuff. Daniel Green from the BookTube folks, and then there's several booktubers that are actually pretty good that I enjoy. I just thought that, there's so much good information out there, y'all. What could I possibly add? I've written a lot. I'm not published, so, that's a thing. I could self-publish, I suppose, but I don't really want to. I want to go the traditional route, at least at this point in time. So there was a piece of advice that I bumped into probably a decade ago now, called Lemuel's Rants. I may not be pronouncing her name right, but all the same, that's how I'm going to pronounce it. And as I continue forward with my videos, you're going to hear me say that name a lot more. So if it's wrong and you know how to pronounce it, please put it down into the comments. Phonetically, it doesn't do me any good for you just to type it again. But if you do it phonetically, I'll do my best to try and correct my pronunciation. But just like any word that you've read multiple times but you've never actually heard pronounced, you probably are not going to get it right. That's how I found out about Authortube. I found out about it by simply stumbling upon it and realizing that it's a really cool community with a lot of neat folks here. They're doing stuff and sharing their writer's journey. That's something I really haven't done. I've kept my writing really close to my chest. This kind of gives me an opportunity to start shining a light on it, cracking the lid. I don't really know what the right analogy is. Getting me comfortable, I guess, about talking about something that's been a pretty private venture for myself up to this point. Question number 2, what genres do you write in? This is a very short answer, fantasy. That's it. That's all I write. I don't particularly want to or care to write anything else. Maybe I'll dip into some sci-fi later. If I see this project that I'm working on to fruition, it will transform from fantasy to sci-fi. I don't know if that's a thing. There's probably other novels that do the same thing over the course of the books, but I don't know what you would classify that or call it as. So maybe it'd be marketed as both. But fantasy, that's what I write. What is your preferred writing tense, point of view, and category of story? Well, predominantly I write adult. There's a part of me that would like to write younger, but I tend to err on the side of realism, and that means that I kind of want to get into the dirty, nitty-gritty type parts of the psyche, and it's really difficult to do that in a way that is suitable for the younger audience, even though I know they're being exposed to all kinds of things on the internet nowadays, and probably I'm a little bit old-fashioned in that regard, hence the gray hair. But yeah, I don't really want to be in that space, so adult space is probably where I'll stay. Point of view, writing tense. Mostly third person limited, first person a little bit. I have a hard time writing in first person. Even when I'm writing in first person, I tend to slip back into third person. But what I'm toying with in this particular project is a mixture of journal, which is first person, and a mixture of third person limited, which kind of helps blend the story all together. So that way you can definitively tell when you're being told a story from a limited point of view of the person who wrote the journal and the person who's reading it, the narrator, and the rest of the story. I could probably do it all in one point of view, but I don't think I want to. So we'll see. If an agent comes back and says that it's not going to work, or publishers don't like it or whatever, I'll switch it. But that's the way I envision the story at the moment anyway. It's kind of working out okay. I keep slipping back, so I do have to be very careful. Question number 4. Are you a plotter, a pantser, or a plancer? Well, I am probably all three, depending on where I've been in my writing. So when I first started writing seriously about a decade ago, I mostly just wrote what came to my mind at the time. Not a whole lot of planning, obviously, so that's totally writing by my pants. Just following the story where it went, characters hit roadblocks and write them out, that type of stuff. I wrote probably close to 1 million words doing that process, but found myself skipping around and things that weren't related, things that weren't consistent. As the story grew in its size and scope and scale, I quickly became aware of the fact that I couldn't keep up with everything that I had said or done before. And I know you can fix that in editing. Look, I get it. But for me, it's very difficult not knowing what I had already said had happened. So I decided to effectively toss all that. Now, a lot of that is because I was learning to write, really. I mean, I've written a lot throughout the years, but never an actual novel, never paying attention to active versus passive voice, showing versus telling, all of the things that anyone watching these videos probably has already heard 1,000 times and been explained way better than I would ever even think about explaining it. But if you've written, then you know that you have to fail before you actually succeed. I kind of view that first 1 million words as my learning process in a lot of ways, kind of coming into my own as an author. So I have shifted to become pure plot now, where effectively now I'm coordinating and organizing, using the 3-act structure, using some of the tools that I've picked up online from Cam Whalen and Abby Emmons, and some of the others that are here on YouTube, and using those to help flesh out my plot, which has really helped me identify the fact that I had no plot. And that's probably not a good thing. Yeah. So learning that I didn't have a plot, basically I didn't have a character who wanted to do anything. Things were just happening to him. Probably the most boring possible story you could ever tell. But it really helped me see my problems and the issues that I had. And I've struggled with those probably maybe the last 6 months or so. Yeah, August. Let's just say August. So I started replotting in August before NaNoWriMo, and have effectively rewritten the story, which was the goal of throwing away the first work to begin with. It was scary to do, for sure. And I'll be honest, I haven't completely deleted it all. It still exists in case I need to go crawling back to it as a safety blanket, if you will. But the stuff I'm writing now is so much different that it's completely useless to go back to try and save any of that. Maybe just the ideas, like some of the ideas I had, but definitely not the writing. Number 5, Are you self-published, published, or yet to be published? Yeah, no. I'm not published. I probably won't self-publish. Maybe if I absolutely have to. There's a part of me that wants to traditionally publish. Some of that is because I think it matters to me more to be accepted, I guess, by people in the business that know what is successful versus me just deciding that I'm going to print. I know we've come a long way since vanity presses. There are very good reasons, obviously, to self-publish, and many successful self-published authors. But for me, I'm leaning more toward traditional publishing. What publishing company, literary agent, or printing company are you represented by or use? If you're not yet published, what is your dream publishing house or literary agent? Look, I don't have one. I'll just be honest. What I really want is a literary agent who's passionate about my project. So, I don't want to be forgot about because they have some big names that they represent and they're busy representing them. I would be just as tickled pink and happy with an agent who has no experience, who just really resonates with my writing and the story and believes in it and wants to go and sell it. So, and publishers, I could care less as far as that goes too. I suppose there's some prestige for landing in one house over the other, but again, I don't want to get caught up in the success of the big authors that are already out there too. So it's just kind of one of those things where I really trust that if it happens, that it will work out the right way. What Authortube related videos can we expect to find on your channel? Okay, so this is one thing that's going to be unique about me. I might do some video blogging like this. This isn't really my cup of tea. Talking to the camera, talking about myself to an audience is awkward for me when it's one-on-one. I do it in large groups quite a bit, but this just seems a little weird. I'm not used to it yet. So I probably am not going to make a whole lot of videos like this, but what I am going to be making are the chalk doodles for Lemuel's rants. So I had this idea to be able to hear and listen to Lemuel's rants. There are 424 rants that she produced whenever she was writing them between the late 2000s and the early 2010s. 424 rants that you can only read right now. And I got to thinking, I don't usually have a whole lot of time to sit and just read. I do want to process them. So what if I could hear them? I thought, well, I'll make a podcast. And then as I watched Authortube the last year during COVID lockdown, I started realizing, hey, nobody has covered this information anywhere. How about I produce these and put them into a big playlist? So if people like me are wanting to exercise, or they're driving, or they just need something on, to be thinking about while they're cooking or prepping something or doing laundry or whatever, they can just turn on the playlist and listen to Lemuel's rants. I mean, they're brilliant. Some are better than others, obviously. That's just going to be true no matter what you do. I'm just going to make an episode for each one of the rants and produce those and try to do at least one a week, sometimes more if I can. 424, even if I did one a week, that would take me 8 years. That's a long time to get through them all. So hopefully I'll get proficient to where I can produce more than one a week. The first one I made, which is up on the Author Atlas channel right now, it took me about 15 hours to program the doodles and to set up the scenes and to do the timing and, of course, all the editing for the sound and the voice. The voiceovers don't take me very long. I'm just reading, but matching all that up and learning the softwares. Obviously, I don't do this. This isn't my thing, hasn't been my thing, so I don't have experience. This video that I'm recording right now will probably be the second video I've ever produced and put on to YouTube. Lemuel's rant number 1, the chalk doodle, being the first video ever. Never, ever have I done it. Obviously, I've recorded and done stuff for my family and done stuff on social media, but never anything like this. So it's completely new to me. My hope is that you, the folks who will be watching this video, will find those rants very helpful. And after I have maybe the first 10, I'll put into a playlist and have that up, so that way you can just choose the playlist and listen to all 10 back to back while you're doing something else. They're all going to be probably relatively short, so we got that going for us. What other Authortube related videos might I do? I'm not going to do writing advice. Number one, you don't need to take advice from me. There's lots and lots of people out there who are giving really good writing advice. I will probably cover the things that are working for me, the tools that I've found over the years that are working for me, that are helping me. I may talk about that. I may talk about how my story's progressing, because for one, I'm excited to talk about that. And I suppose that most people won't care, but in hindsight for me, it would be very valuable to see a documentation of how I've progressed as I've moved through. And to a certain degree, it will hold me accountable to continue to work, because it's very easy for me to chase the muse, if you will, to want to write whenever I only want to write. And sometimes that can go months where I just don't feel creative at all. And I need to learn how to tame the muse and somewhat domesticate her and use the muse throughout all the time. Hopefully this will help hold me a little bit accountable too. So generally you should see Lemuel's rants in the chalk doodle form and some vlog type entries where I talk about the work that I've been doing. Like right now I'm doing Camp NaNoWriMo. I participated really in depth the first couple of weeks. I did the live write-ins that have been being hosted here on YouTube by several of the folks, but mostly through Katie Kavanaugh's channel and her partnerships with the other authors. But then the last 2 weeks, work has flared up, and yeah, I've gotten nothing done. And whenever I do have time to myself, just really tired and not interested in being creative. So I don't know if you can relate to that or not. I'm sure many people flow in their creative processes, but whenever your job draws down that creative energy, it's very difficult to manifest it whenever you need to or whenever you have time. You know, it's getting late. It'll probably be midnight my time by the time I'm done with this video. And, you know, I haven't written anything today because I'm making a video. So I don't want to use that as a crutch. Part of it is I don't feel very creative tonight, so I just decided I'd talk to the camera instead. And it's taken me a bit of time to get all this set up to where it works even remotely right. I know I still have a long way to go, and I'll try not to say so much. That's a pet peeve of mine. I hear myself doing it a lot because I'm rambling. When did you start writing? The first story I remember writing was my sophomore year in high school. I wrote a short story, if you will, more like a novella, which is why I made a D instead of a good grade on that assignment. It was called Flight of the Draconians. It was loosely inspired off of some of our D&D campaign that we had been playing with my friends, and I was just really inspired by the ability to write a story. And we were asked to write a short story, 5,000 words, and my story was 45,000 words. And yeah, the teacher gave me a bad grade because I didn't follow the directions. However, to his credit, the next week he taught the class on my story and then gave a test which gave me an A, which definitely counteracted the D that he had given me for the short story daily assignment. So that was my first piece. I have lost that piece. It was on an old computer back during floppy disk, guys. I mean, no internet. So it was on an old computer. The computer died and I didn't have a backup. So I don't have a copy of it. Maybe my old English teacher does. Maybe I can find him someday and see if he still has a copy, but I would probably be embarrassed to read it anyway. That's when I started. Now, when did I start seriously? Well, about a decade ago, and wanting to write this story. When I was in college, I did a lot of, short stories here and there and poetry and whatnot. And I even sat on the editor panel as a student editor for an anthology production of creative writing and fantasy and poetry. I've been around writing for quite some time, but as far as this current project that I'm working on, I started it in earnest about a decade ago. In fact, it was just before Game of Thrones started, because I remember very clearly as I was watching Game of Thrones, because I hadn't read the books, I hadn't been exposed to the storyline, and there was a lot of similarities between what I was seeing on TV and what I had already started writing. Nobody has a unique idea. Yeah, that's true. It's totally true. Okay, so I kind of answered 8 and 9 at the same time. I can go back maybe and catch that in editing, but if not, yeah, I answered 8 and 9 together. What authors have inspired your writing the most? Hands down, Brandon Sanderson, not even close. And mostly I have to say because he produced creative writing class for fantasy and science fiction through BYU and published it on YouTube. The whole class, as if you just were there in Utah hanging out with him and taking class yourself. And I went through that entire class twice, 2 different years, 2 different videos, effectively the same type of information, but You know how it is. Every time you teach something, you teach it a little bit differently. And I found that to be true. I still will just binge watch his classes today, like the most recent versions of what he's taught, and catch and remember things that I had forgotten about from the classes before. The notes that I had taken, were very detailed, and I just continue to add to them. So because the material itself doesn't really change all that much, you can do that. I guess besides him, the one I want to emulate the most is Patrick Rothfuss. There's just something special about the way that guy writes. And I remember when I was reading his first book, telling my wife that this book is basically about being in debt for college. Why am I reading this? But I couldn't put the book down. He's very talented, and I will never be able to do that organically or naturally. But I have to say, it is something special whenever I encountered it. So I list him as one of my favorite authors, even though he hasn't finished his last book in that first trilogy yet. But hey, I'm also inspired by the fact that basically his trilogy was one story that got broke up. I'm not going to be too terribly far from that same type of a scenario myself. So 11, do you schedule your writing sessions or simply get to writing whenever you can find the time? I've kind of answered that. Usually I write at nighttime. Usually I write a couple of times during the week. I do not schedule it hard. I do not say on Wednesday night, Friday night, and Sunday night, I'm going to write. What I do is I set aside time to be up here in my office in the evening, usually late, while other folks in my family are watching TV or doing other things to wind down themselves. I'm up here, and if I'm not playing computer games or watching Netflix or something like that, I'm thinking about my story, or I am physically writing. Usually I have a scene that builds up in my head, usually through dreams or through downtime as I'm resting, and the scene kind of develops and develops and develops, and then it gets to the point where it reaches a critical mass and I have to put it down on paper. And then I move to the next plot point, and my mind builds that scene, and it builds and builds and builds until I reach critical mass and I have to put it down on paper. So I would say I write in spurts, but my spurts can be very productive. So whenever the dam is burst and it's time to get it down on paper, I go fast. But I spend a lot of time lollygagging around, kind of letting it build in my head before I get there. Do you type on a computer, typewriter, write everything out by hand, use a blend of those? Where do you write in general? Okay, I type everything. I gave up handwriting a long time ago. I would just handwrite, and then I would have to translate that back over into digital format. Yeah, that's just one step too many for sure, and in a two-step process. So I type everything. Now I write here at my desk in my office. I have a laptop that I'll often take with me. I go to the coffee shop if it's the weekend, and I can get there during the day and just kind of hang out for 6 hours or so at a time. Of course, that was really pre-COVID. I guess I haven't done that since COVID hit, but before COVID for sure. Take my laptop and just sit at the coffee shop all day, and the smell, the invigoration of energy of people coming and going, and the hustle bustle just helps. And I tend to have more creative energy in the winter months than I do in the summer months. So I'm about to hit my dry spell as far as writing goes. Well, I guess as far as my muse goes. So I need to work on trying to embrace my muse. What are you most looking forward to now that you're a part of Authortube? Okay, I'm going to be completely transparent here. Other people. I don't talk to people about my writing. I have a small group at the NaNoWriMo group, and there's a small group that was writing at the library. But generally, like I said, because of the nature of the work that I do, I don't really share this part of my life with anybody outside the four walls of this home. I guess I miss community. Even before COVID really hit, that was true. So one, I'm hoping that the work that I do in the Lemuel's rants will resonate with folks, and that folks will find those useful. And then I'm hoping also that I'll be able to generate some friendships and connect on here with people who are genuinely interested in writing. And I'm going to be predominantly focused on fantasy. So don't let that dissuade you from watching Lemuel's rants. Even though they're technically fantasy rants, they apply to all genres and a lot of things, because they discuss dialogue and tropes and lots of information like that. So that's what I'm looking forward to the most, is the people. Otherwise, why bother? I wouldn't put the time in this if it wasn't for that. I'm probably not the best person to be watching on YouTube. I'm definitely not super entertaining and energetic like some of the folks. You're probably not going to see a lot of really pretty videos from me. This is probably as pretty as it's going to get. I might do some clips of some other things, but just generally speaking, I don't record myself doing stuff. I kind of grew up in the age of more privacy, not in the age of living with camera on you all the time. So to that note, I don't find it natural to record myself just doing things. I've tried it the last couple of weeks and I've been able to do some stuff, but generally speaking, it's just not for me. So yeah, you probably will get bored sitting here and watching me as a talking head. I get it. It's fine. No big deal. Hopefully you'll just like me as a person and want to get to know me too. But if not, I'm good with that. There's lots and lots of entertainment out there and you should be entertained. But if you're looking for a relationship, if you're looking to get to know somebody, if you're looking to, respond and write and comment and have those comments and responses responded to, and have dialogues and conversations, then maybe you are in the right place. Listen, thank you so much for taking the time to get to know me and to listen to my introductory video and answer all these questions that are in the Authortube NEWBIE tag. I appreciate you sticking around with me this far. Hopefully I will see you around and you will enjoy the Lemuel's rants as much as you enjoy these rare vlogs that I'll be uploading. Thank you so much and take care. Good night. I don't know. Do y'all care if I use my hands or not? I don't even know. I mean, does it matter? Like, do you need to be visually entertained as a part of the videos too? I don't know. Just a thought. I definitely can move my hands, obviously. Oops, I hit my microphone. Really don't want to sniff in your ear. Sorry about that. Oh, this is the Zoom wave. You can tell I spend way too much time on Zoom.